John.
My family were ethnic Germans out of southern Russia, Bessarabia in our case. This is a 1937 map of Eastern Europe with Bessarabia at the lower right and with Prussia at the center top near the Baltic Sea.
How did your family end up in Russia?
Our family history in Russia goes back to the late 1700s or early 1800s when Catherine the Great, ruler of Imperial Russia, issued an invitation for Germans and other Europeans to immigrate to southern Russia. The immigrants were given 2 horses, a wagon, some seeds, and a little amount of money. Also, immigrant men were exempt from Russian military service.
Why did Russia want these immigrants?
Historians say that Russia needed these people to populate and work the vacant lands, what they call the Russian steppe. And one of the reasons was that it would help keep the Mongols at bay.
Why did your family leave this area and where did they move to?
Before I get into that, let me describe our family at that time. My father, Oscar, was about 30 years old, and my mother was the same age. Then there was my brother, Oscar. He was about 5 years old. Then there was me, Erwin. I was about 3 years old. And from what I've been told years later by my mother, she said that we were put on a train with only the things that we could carry in a suitcase. All other property was left behind. Okay. This clip typifies how we moved from Bessarabia to Prussia. There were many other ethnic Germans that were put on the train. It was a large group. It was not only us.
Where did they take your family?
They took us north to West Prussia, which was part of German territory at that time. And World War II, due to the, or because of the reunification treaty that the Germans signed, the West and East Prussia were given to Poland and is now part of Poland.
I know you lived in West Germany before your family moved to the United States, but how did that come about?
Again, this had something to do with World War II. As the war was starting to wind down and the Russian army was moving west, pushing the German army back to where they came from, we decided, or my family decided, that it would not be good for us to stay there and be overtaken by the Russians. Things probably would not have gone well for us. So, along with other ethnic Germans in this area, they formed a wagon train very similar to the ones that you see in movies in the West here in the U.S. Some traveled by horse-drawn wagons, others traveled by train, and some walked, some rode bicycles, some pushed carts. It was a long trek, and it was not easy. This trek took place in the wintertime. It was very cold at times. Some days the ground was frozen hard. I can remember as a child being only, about 4 years old. They put us on this wagon in the dark, in the middle of the night, and we slept between feather beds, kept warm, and then in the morning when we woke up and looked out, we found that we were part of a wagon train of about 20 or 30 wagons. They were all heading slowly down a cobblestone road. I guess they were heading west. Anyway, it must have taken us several weeks to arrive at our destination, which was West Germany. And we had experienced many things along the way. During the day, occasionally, if the weather was not too bad, they let us children walk alongside the wagon just to get some exercise. And then at night, they parked the wagons usually they'd find some kind of a wooded area or a sheltered area that protected the horses and the wagons, and they could be fed and so on. And also, before we reached West Germany, we had been overtaken by some fighting because we saw dead horses and dead soldiers in a couple of places that we went. They were just recently, shelled or bombed or something, but they were pretty well tore up. It was not something that they wanted us kids to see, but children, they'll peek if they can. Anyway, so we went on, and eventually we ended up in West Germany near a city called Oldenburg. And because we were agrarian type people that lived on the farm, didn't really have any skills for working in factories, they put us out in a farm area. And we ended up in a place where they had a lot of dairy cattle. And a local family took us in. The men were off. They had been drafted into the military, so there weren't any men in the household. It was just a woman and I can't remember, maybe a daughter or two, young girls. So my mother got a job milking her cows, and for that we were housed and fed. And meanwhile, before we left Prussia, Oscar had contracted TB and was sick, and he had been put in a sanitarium hospital. And just before we left, my mother went to the hospital to get him, and found out that all the children that were there had been evacuated, but they couldn't tell her where they took him.
What about your dad?
And of course, while we were in Prussia, my father had contracted TB also, and he passed away before we left Prussia. So my mother was all alone with, at this time now, was two small kids and one son missing. But there was nothing she could do about that. Her priority was to get us to safety. But when we did reach West Germany and settled down, and the war finally passed over us there was some fighting going on. The British were coming through that sector, and just I don't know, it was a few days or a couple of weeks later, the Germans surrendered and the war was over. And now my mother was desperate to locate my brother Oscar, and she went to the American Red Cross, and through them they were eventually located him and returned him to us. And I think it probably took almost maybe even longer than a year. So he had been away from the family nearly a year and a half or 2 years. Anyway, because we were refugees from the East, what we refer to as displaced persons, my mother and us, we were eligible to apply for a visa to the United States. Of course, my mother, not being educated and didn't know much about the world, she didn't react right away. She wanted to talk, investigate it and talk to other people about it to see what this was all about. Meanwhile, she married or met a man named Heinz Kalin. She ended up marrying him, and he became our stepfather. And he was eligible to go with us only because he was married to my mother. He was a local German and was not eligible. But because he was married to my mother and she was eligible, he was allowed to come along. So it took about, 2 or 3 years to be vetted, where we had to go to which was a German military base that had been converted to a place where it was similar to, it was kind of like an Ellis Island in Germany. The Americans ran the place, and they had all these refugees there, and they were interviewing, examining health, to see if they were physically fit and all that sort of stuff, and check documents and what have you. And because of where we came from, we didn't have very good documents. In fact, we didn't have any actual birth certificates. So we had to help or ask for help through our Lutheran church, and they helped contacting churches in the area where we were born or lived, and got sworn statements from them and church records that validated our, who we were. And once that was all done and said, like I say, it took about 2 or 3 years. It's been a long time ago. So I think it was in 1951, we finally boarded an American ship. It was a Navy troop transport.
Before that, though, your brother Rolf was born.
Right. Before we left Germany, our family consisted of my mother Herda, stepfather Heinz. It was Heinz Kalin, and they had a son that was born before we left there. His name was Rolf. It was Rolf Kalin. When my mother married Heinz, they did not change our names. Oscar, me, and Wally, we kept our last name, which was Grassle. Anyway, in December of 1951, we boarded the ship, like I said a while ago. It was a Navy troop transport. And I think they brought troops to Europe, and then they took refugees back to the States. So we pulled into New York Harbor, and like I say, we were already vetted, and so all we had to do is collect our luggage, claim our luggage, and we boarded a train that went to California. And the reason we had to go there is because every immigrant had to have a sponsor in the States, and our sponsor was located in California. So anyway, we ended up on a farm near Bakersfield, and my father, stepfather, he was a blacksmith and a welder, so he got a job on this large farm maintaining all the farm equipment that had to do with welding and blacksmith. That was his profession. And us boys, Oscar, myself, and Wally, we went to a grade school there locally. Rolf was not old enough yet. And a few years went by, and my mother had another baby, and her name was Shirley. She was born, I think, in 1957. I may be off by a year, one way or the other. Anyway, talk about 1957. I was old enough. I joined the U.S. Navy, and Oscar had joined the U.S. Air Force a year earlier. Neither one of us graduated from high school at that time. We just joined the military because we didn't particularly want to live on the farm for the rest of our life.
When did you get your U.S. citizenship?
Okay, I got my citizenship in 1956, and I think it was in April 1956, and that's it was after that I was a citizen when I joined the Navy. Now Oscar, he joined the Air Force without being a citizen, and because he was in the military, they put him on a fast track to get his citizenship, so he had no problems getting it. And let's see. Rolf turned out that he was the first member in our family in history that graduated from the high school. He was the only smart one at that time. When Oscar retired, or not retired, but when Oscar got discharged from the Air Force, he went to work for the General Electric, and he got into the nuclear electric generating industry. And later on, started his own business providing skilled labor to help nuclear power plants during their outages and through their refueling process. It was very successful for him. Wally, he started his own paving business, and he did well. He paved mostly blacktop paving.
John?
Okay, anyway, what I was saying was, the Germans had bought a whole bunch of these F-104Gs, and the company asked me to go to Germany with a group of other people as tech reps to help the Germans get started on getting familiar with the aircraft and to service it and to operate and so on. So I was over there I think I stayed there for 6 months, and they offered me a 3-year contract to stay over there to continue doing what we were sent over there for. A lot of the other guys came back, but anyway, when I put this to Linda, it turned out that our son Scott had just been born, and she said that if you stay over there for 3 years, I won't be here when you get back. So anyway, I decided not to take the offer and came back. But anyway, let me go back and when I was in the service, I was over in Hawaii. Lynn and I got married, and Steve was born in 1960 over there. And when I got discharged, like I say, we came back. We moved to Palmdale, where Lockheed had their assembly facility. And in 1962, Scott was born. And then in 64, our son Jim was born. All 3 of the boys went to grade school and high school right there in Palmdale, California. When Steve graduated from high school, he got a job with Northrop Aircraft, and while he had this job, they offered an opportunity for employees, and the company paid for it, an education. So he took it, and I think it was University of Illinois, they had set up a class at Edwards Air Force Base, and he went out there and he got his BA in engineering, through the company. And then, let's see, Scott, when he graduated from high school, he went to UCLA. He got a BA in mathematics. And then Jim, when he graduated from high school, he went to San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, USC Santa Barbara. And he got a BA in education. And later on, Jim taught some high school, had some other jobs with one school system. He was a statistician for the district. Then he got himself a job overseas in Abu Dhabi in the AEU.
At a university.
At a university, doing the same thing he was doing at this school district. Anyway, he worked there for about 8 or 9 years. While there, he studied, I guess, on his own, and got himself a PhD. So he's the only doctor in our family, and we're real proud of him. We're also proud of the other guys, but just kudos to Jim.
And what does he do now?
And now, after spending all that time over there in the Middle East, he came back and got a job at a university in Philadelphia. He just got this job, and I'm not sure exactly what he does. Next time I talk to him, I'll try to find out. But I'm sure he's liking it. He would have liked to come back to California, but that opportunity came along, and he was tired of being overseas, so he took it. Hopefully someday he'll come back to California, so it won't be so far to visit. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that I probably want to say and forgot. Yeah, we have grandkids. My wife just reminded me. Let's see. Steve had 2 sons. There was Stephen Jr. and Michael Erwin. He's the youngest. He's still in high school. The older one lives in Florida now. He's married and has a daughter. Daughter's name Ellie. Okay, Scott, he's married, and he's living in Sacramento. He's having some physical problems. He's got some problems with his hips.
And he has a stepson, Justin.
And he has a stepson, Justin. I think he may, if things don't work out, he may have to get a hip replacement here pretty soon. Anyway, that's another thing I don't know about. We'll have to find out whenever we see him. And let's see, who have we not mentioned? Who?
Jim.
Okay, yeah, well, Jim, he's got three sons and a stepson. There's Ryan. He graduated from Cal Poly, is now a software engineer with Amazon. And Garrett, he's attending junior college in Fresno.
And he got his...
Garrett has what?
Garrett got his license to be a EKG specialist tech.
Okay, he's studying something in the medical field. He's got his license to be an EKG specialist of some kind. But he's still going to school. And Kevin, he's the youngest. He's still in high school. I think he's a junior now. And he's on the volleyball team. We went to watch him play last week, and poor guy didn't get a chance to play.
And then Timur.
And then there's his Jim's stepson's Timur. He's about 22 years old, and he's from Russia, and he's living with Jim and his wife Kate because he signed up to join the army, and he's waiting. I think his call-up time is going to be in August. The reason he's going in August, that the school that he wants to go to will coincide with him graduating from boot camp and go right into the class without any time in between. So they set it up where you join the service and get the right timing to go to the school that you are requesting.
Justin, Scott's stepson, is in the Navy.
Yeah, Scott's stepson, Justin, he joined the Navy. He finished boot camp just recently.
And he's also a college graduate.
Yeah, and he graduated from University of
Merced.
Merced. Thank you, honey.
And Timur graduated from University of Hong Kong.
Yeah, right. Tim graduated from the University of Hong Kong. If it weren't for you, honey, I'd screw this all up more than I already have. So I think that pretty well puts our kids behind. I'm not going to say much about Wally. Still, he's retired. He's had 2 sons, and let's see, Oscar had a
3
son.
girls and 2 boys.
Yeah, 3 girls and
And 2 boys.
2 boys. Okay, what are the boys?
Ralph, 2 boys.
Who are the boys' name?
Ralph's? Ralph's or Oscar's?
I was talking about Oscar.
Bill and Martin.
Okay, Bill and Martin. And now, I'm sad to say that Oscar passed away about 3 years ago. He had cancer of the liver, and it was a tragic thing, but I guess God giveth and God takes away. Joe is still living here in Arroyo Grande in the same house. Now, the oldest son, what was his name again?
Bill.
Yeah, Bill. He passed away of a heart attack here about 5-6 years ago. As a young man, passed away in his sleep. That was really sad. And Martin lives here locally, and the 3 girls, live different places.
They're all here in California.
Yeah, they're all here in California. That's all I'm going to say about my memory's just not all that good right now to recite anymore. Go ahead and turn it off.